Getting a system up and running is a critical part of our operator's job, but it takes many other people working behind the scenes to get the system ready to accomplish this task. In this unit, we will discuss the purpose of the IPO process, which stands for Initial Program Load, also simply referred to as IPO on the system. This is the first thing that you do as an operator on a ZeroWest system to get it up and running from a console. To create a working ZeroWest system, we must provide all the data sets that are required during the IPO process. In this unit, we'll discuss some of the data sets needed to accomplish this task. I will not cover all of them. We simply do not have enough time, but I will cover the ones that are critical to make your IPO successful. When all done, you should be able to explain the IPO process, at a high level of course, and understand some of the data sets needed to get this task done, and why they are important to having a successful IPO. As we can see by the picture, there are several data sets that are needed to get the system up and running. The system initialization process prepares the SCP, the system control program, and its environment to do the work for the installation. The process essentially consists of system and storage initialization, including the creation of system component address spaces. The master schedule initialization and the subsystem initializations are also done at this time. The out configuration will be done for HCD, so you can use the system and the things attached to the system. We'll talk more about HCD later in this unit. Now let's take a high-level look at some of the data sets that are shown on this page and are needed to complete this process. The first data set is the sys.1 nucleus data set. It is always located on the sysres device. It contains the IRMs, IPL Resource Initialization Manager. It contains the NIP, the Nucleus Initialization Process, and it contains the RIMs, the Resource Initialization Manager. These are the basic supervisor modules of the kernel, for which the ZeroWest initialization, which I will cover later. It is specified in the load parm. The default that the system uses is IA-NUC01. So if you need to change the nucleus, you can specify another one on the load parm. Any alternate one would be used. One reason you may want to do this is maybe you want to apply some PTFs to the nucleus that you're currently using. This dataset also contains programs that are used by the IPO program, which we'll discuss later in this course. The next dataset is the sys1 LPA Lib. This is also a required dataset that contains all the system execution modules that are loaded in the pageable link pack area, or simply the PLPA page dataset. These modules include things like system routines, supervisor calls, also known as SPC routines, data management access method, non-resident machine check handler modules, program minor binders, authorization and accounting exit routines, logon mode tables, and some TSOE modules. Whew, I've just said a mouthful. But as you can see, the sys1 LPA Lib is a data set that is needed to have a successful IPO. The sys1 LPA Lib cannot be a PDSE. We'll discuss some of these terms later as we go through the course. Next is the sys1 link lib. By default, the sys1 link lib is a required partition dataset or PDSE dataset, and it's the first dataset in the linked list, which is a collection of libraries containing system and user code. One of the modules in the sys1 link lib is the master JCL, which contains the initial job control language, or what we call JCL. It's the statements that start the master schedule subsystem, which is a critical step in the IPO process. We'll talk more about the master JCL later in this unit. Let's also mention the sys1 SPC Lib. This load library contains recovery routines that are used when errors occur during the initial program load process. It also resides in the sys1 res pack and is set up by the MBS initialization process, and it's normally something you never have to touch. We'll visit this load library later, but for now, that's all we really need to understand about this data set. There are some other data sets that the system uses. On this page is a list of the ones needed by ZeroWest. First, there are the page data sets that are used by the storage managers to perform paging and swapping. Page data sets are required by the system so that you don't have to run out of storage. We'll discuss the process of paging in and paging out, and the process of swapping in and swapping out later in this unit. Next, we see mentioned the sys.1 proc lib. This is a system library that contains the catalog procedures that can be executed either through JCL or by using the start command on the ZOS console. This dataset cannot be PDSE. The SMF dataset, the System Management Facility datasets, are optional BSIM datasets that contain information collected by the SMF routines or other measurement facilities about job-related or system-related utilization. Sys1 is the default name for these datasets. Typically on the system, you're going to see several of these. So there's going to be a Man1, Man2, Man3 datasets on your system. The logRET dataset is also an optional dataset that contains statistical data about machine failures, about processor failures, our device failures, channel errors, and so forth. It also contains records for programming error recording, the missing interrupt information, and dynamic device reconfiguration, or what we call DDR routines. Although this dataset is optional, it's very wise to have this dataset in your system. The Sys1 DAE is an optional fixed block sequential dataset that contains a permanent record of unique dumps identified by the dump analysis and elimination, or simply the DAE. The Sys1 dump datasets are optional sequential datasets that contain system dumps, which record errors of virtual storage in the case of a system task failure. Note that I mentioned that some system datasets are required that you use the PDS and not the PDSE datasets. That's because the PDSE datasets are not available until the IPL process has been started. So they cannot be used by the datasets that I mentioned. So for now, this is a wrap. In our next session, we'll continue our discussion on the LDF and the Sys1.PARM members.